Our aerial journey begins at Cape Town and Table Mountain, before heading south round the Cape of Good Hope, and then back up past some of the best-known vineyards to Stellenbosch. We then head east to Hermanus and whale watching, before flying along the garden route to Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape, and on up the wild coast to Durban in KwaZulu-Natal, before heading inland to the Drakensberg Mountains. And where better to begin our aerial journey than Cape Town, and on top of one of the most recognisable mountains in the world, Table Mountain. The mountain towers over the city. It's 2 miles long and 3,500 feet above sea level. It was named Table Mountain by Antonio da Soldano, the first European to sail into the bay in 1503. The flat top is flanked on one side by Devil's Peak, and the other, Lion's Head. One of the most famous views of the mountain is from the sea to the north, where it's possible to see how much it dominates the city. More often than not, the mountaintop is covered by a white tablecloth, when clouds are formed by a warm southeasterly wind rising up the mountainside and meeting colder air at the top. And the views from the top are spectacular. But for those who prefer the easy way up, a cable car takes you to the plateau. And standing in the mountain shadow is a memorial to a man who more than any other played such an important, as well as controversial, role in the story of South Africa, Cecil Rhodes. At the end of the 19th century, he used his wealth to build a British empire in the New World, through mining concessions and creating British protectorates. He created Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, and dreamt of a red line of British power from Cape Town to Cairo. Cape Town is a true cosmopolitan city and a major tourist destination. Its development over the centuries has been influenced by Dutch, British and Cape Malay ideas. Today, modern buildings stand next to historic ones, including the Grand City Hall, built in 1905, and the much earlier Castle of Good Hope, built around 1670. One of the most dominant features of the city is the new football stadium at Green Point on the coast. It holds 68,000 people and was built for the 2010 World Cup. Close by the stadium is the old Victoria and Alfred waterfront, which was gradually redeveloped in the late 1980s into residential and shopping areas, along with restaurants and expensive hotels, including an island with 40 suites surrounded by other luxury apartments. But there is another island just off the Cape Town coast, which stands in marked contrast to this modern luxury. This is Robben Island, which lies 5 miles north of Cape Town. It was a prison and had been since the end of the 17th century. And it was here, in 1963, that Nelson Mandela was incarcerated for 18 of his 27 years in captivity. All prisoners had to do back-breaking hard labour in the lime quarry close by the prison, and existed on very basic rations. Today the prison is a museum and the whole island a World Heritage Site. Perhaps the last word about this place should come from Nelson Mandela himself, when he reflected back on his time spent here. It's true that Robben Island was once a place of darkness, but out of that darkness has come a wonderful brightness, a light so powerful that it could not be hidden behind prison walls. Another contrast is between the affluent centre of Cape Town and the townships on the city outskirts. This is Khayelitsha, home to 2 million people and built during the apartheid era for the black population. Under the new government, brick buildings are being put up to improve the housing, but the corrugated tin shanty towns still exist. It's a very different story on the west side of the city, where modern apartment blocks line the shore at Sea Point and up the side of Lion's Head. One of the glories of South Africa is its coastline, which stretches for nearly 1,800 miles and boasts some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. And Noordhoek Beach is one of them, a 4-mile stretch of white sand and deep blue sea. But this beauty can be deceptive, because very quickly a storm can turn the sea into a fearsome maelstrom, which over the centuries has driven many a ship onto the shore. All around the coast, rusting wrecks can be seen. Proof, if proof was needed, of how dangerous the seas can be. And especially around the Cape of Good Hope, where gale-force winds and tidal races can drive unsuspecting ships onto the rocks. Cape Point Lighthouse replaced an earlier one built higher up on the Cape, because in 1911, as a result of the old one being shrouded in fog and the light obscured, a Portuguese liner, the Lusitania, was driven onto the rocks. There was no lighthouse in 1488, when the European explorer Bartolomeo Diaz discovered the Cape for the first time. He erected a cross, which was later replaced with this replica as a memorial to his discovery, and is interestingly used by sailors today as a navigation point. The weather patterns around the Cape area do have one very beneficial effect, and that's on all the vineyards, because South Africa is one of the world's great wine producers, with a history that goes back to the Dutch settlers in the late 17th century. These are just some of the beautifully maintained historic estate houses in the shadow of Table Mountain at Constantia. The main area of the Cape wine industry is to the east of Cape Town, around Stellenbosch. One of the earliest estates is Boschendal, which has a history stretching back to 1685. The old manor house has been enlarged and altered over the years, and what we see today